Your host for this talk show themed Unite to support ending all forms of violence against women and children, to help us understand the justice processes and the role each one of us must be playing. We have two distinguished guests that are going to be helping us break down how we can actually face and conquer these realities in our nation. First, from the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions, we're honored to be having Ms. Samali Wakoli, Assistant Director of Public Prosecutions, as well as Head of the Gender, Children and Sexual Offences Department. Then secondly, from the International Justice Mission, we are welcoming Mr. Byron Mwanje, Senior Manager for Justice System Intervention, and this is from the International Justice Mission. Ladies and gentlemen, you're most welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, as they say, ladies first, so I'm going to allow Ms. Samali your salutations first.
Thank you so much, Ms. Priscilla. My name is Wakoli Samali, as indicated. I'm an Assistant Director of Public Prosecutions, working with the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions of Uganda. And our office is holding a constitutional mandate under Article 120 of our 1995 Constitution to handle and prosecute all criminal cases in the country, and we appear in all courts apart from the court-martial. So we will do all prosecutions of cases that are reported at police. We are basically the lawyers and the advocates of the people when it comes to criminal cases in all courts, and we are situated across the whole country. So we direct police to do our investigations, and we do the prosecutions in court.
All right. Allow me to follow up before I bring in Mr. Mwanje. When you say criminal cases, given the theme that we're focusing on today, yes, what are the criminal cases that are handling violence against women and children?
Thank you. I want us to know that when we are talking about cases of gender-based violence, we are looking at human rights, and the human rights begin from the Constitution. When we talk about the right to life, right to personal liberty, right not to be treated in an inhuman and degrading manner. So these offenses which are codified in our penal code, we are looking at offenses like rape. We are looking at offenses like defilement. We are looking at offenses like murder, if it happens in the domestic setting, and we are seeing those cases increasing every single day. I think in the year of 2020, we got an increase of 16% of murders that happen within the home setting because of the COVID, something like that. And we are talking about cases of trafficking in persons and in children. We are talking about cases of which happen online. And this year's theme, by the way, when we are talking about the 16 days of activism, we are looking at digital violence. So we are looking at domestic violence, but we are also looking at offenses that occur online. People have been in a relationship, and when the relationship goes sour, the other one goes online and begins publishing all the secrets of what they were having online. Or they use the content they have to blackmail the other partner, and they begin abusing them sexually or other forms of. So we have abuse that happens online, and then we also have abuse that happens offline, and those are the offenses that we are talking about.
Okay, well, that is a basket of offenses. Later on we'll be having a breakdown and an understanding of how the office is actually handling each one of these cases. Mr. Byron Mwanje, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Yes.
Thank you, Priscilla, for having us. My name is Byron Mwanje. I'm the Senior Manager, Justice System Interventions at International Justice Mission. Briefly, IJM is a global organization that works to protect vulnerable people from violence. And our work involves partnering with institutions mandated to administer justice, like the DPP, like police, like the judiciary, and other essential service providers like probation officers, health officers, to ensure that vulnerable people are protected from violence. And together we do four things. The first one is rescuing of victims or survivors from places of danger to places where they can have safety. The second is bringing criminals to justice. We believe that one way to end this violence is through deterrence, and to get that you need to have perpetrators held accountable. The third is restoration of survivors. This kind of abuse causes a lot of trauma on the survivors, so they have to be rehabilitated through psychosocial support. So that is our third role, restoration of survivors. And then the last one is strengthening justice systems, working with these actors to bridge the gaps in the response so that we have a holistic response to these abuses. We exist in 29 districts in Uganda, and our focus is on two abuses currently: domestic violence or intimate partner violence for women, and then sexual violence against children, both boys and girls.
Okay, allow me to follow up and ask, we hear the word justice, but many people may not understand justice and how it applies to them as subject matters. What is justice from where you seated, Mr. Mwanje?
So justice can be defined in many ways. It's a broad word. You are talking about fairness, but what I can say in this context is that someone who has been abused should have their rights guaranteed and protected by the law.
Okay.
Because everyone have their dignity. A girl child has the same rights as a boy child. A woman has full dignity as a human being. She is not property. She has equal worth like a man. So if any of their rights are trampled on, justice means that there is an arbiter. It's a process that will create an arbiter for them for their rights to be guaranteed and protected.
Okay, all right, thank you so much. Now, the submissions that have been made in the rooms of actually tickle me a little bit, because the justice that we're trying to find is ideally greatly constituted in our culture norms and our societies by the cultural statuses that we belong to. Before we get into the questions, here's a scenario that happens ever so often in Uganda, in our regions, in our communities, in our homes. A 14-year-old girl is defiled by a neighbor or an uncle who threatens to harm the family if they report. This case, it's usually the mother, because women were very vulnerable. We will hold on to that secret. That mother, fearing retaliation and stigma, instead agrees to a family settlement that is usually arranged by our community leaders, predominantly men. Weeks later, this child begins to show signs of trauma, drops out of school, and eventually the case never reaches the justice that we want to talk about here this morning. This is the reality on ground, unfortunately, and it's not an isolated case. It mirrors what women and children are going through every single day here in Uganda. And this is where I want to turn to you, Mr. Mwanje, as the Senior Manager with the Justice System Intervention, IGM. The baseline findings reveal extreme high prevalence of violence against women and children. What does this tell us about the scale of the problem in Uganda, and what are the urgent interventions that this data shows us we must prioritize?
Thank you, Priscilla, for highlighting this. And I like what you said in the preamble, that we're not just mentioning numbers, we are talking about real lives. People that we can identify with, women and children who are living outside the protection of the law. And so that causes for urgent need for response. And so this calls for all of us, all and sundry, to ensure that we support the justice system to work. We want a justice system that is responsive, in the sense that when people report cases, there's going to be a quick response. It should be trusted. Someone should know that if I go to the police station, or if my case ends up before the office of the DPP and it has good evidence, it will be sanctioned, end up through a court process, and even in the court, I will be heard, I will be able to tell my story, and the judge will hear me, and I will have a process that will not bring me back the trauma that I underwent, but instead will allow me to experience a trauma-informed experience, and I'm able to tell my story and receive justice. So it should be responsive, needs to be trusted, but also accessible. How near is it for a woman to report her abuse? How near is it for a child? So we need to work together to ensure that this system works. There's a lot we also need to do urgently at the community level. We need to empower many of the leaders you've talked about, who are kind of the first responders. A woman who has been abused will most likely run to the Navachala, Secretary for Women Affairs. And sometimes they will not know what to do, or they may end up having an LC court to deal with a criminal matter, which is not their mandate. And therefore, you need to empower the LC court, which we are trying to do, working with the Ministry of Local Government and other actors like the DPP, to empower them to know what their mandate is, where does it stop, and how should they channel these kind of survivors to the justice system. Local leaders, you've talked about the social norms. So we need traditional leaders, we need to talk to the cultural leaders. We've been able in our program to engage institutions like the Singapore Rwenzururu and the Tenga Dola to arrive at gender guidelines, agreed gender guidelines by the traditional institution to say these are harmful practices, not acceptable. Women deserve dignity, this is how we should treat women, this is how we should treat children. You also need to engage religious leaders because this one attract all kind of people. They must use the pulpit to speak against injustice and drive people to the justice system. But you also have many women in those communities who have undergone this abuse, the survivors. They can be a strong voice to bring systemic change. But we must also continue empowering also other actors, like I mentioned, health workers. They are very key. If a girl has been raped, has been sexually abused, you need a medical examination. How do you do it? How do you do it in time? How do you do it in a way that will cause Samali and her colleagues to find that there is evidence that will end up in court? How about the probation officer? They also have a distinct role to play, not just for cases of adoption, but for many cases where there is domestic violence and child abuse, sexual violence. They have a key role in coming in the court, ensuring that they are supporting with the psychosocial needs of the survivors. So we have to ensure that the justice system works, but also at the community level, we have deterrence by all actors, everyone playing their role.
Okay, all right. Ms. Samali, that's why I want to then pick it up from you. With that staggering prevalence, we do have the figures that are running on the screen. Nearly 6 of every 10 women that you're going to be walking past, 6 of every 10 children you're going to be walking past are affected. How is the prosecution office or responding to the justice for these survivors? Or victims in this case, actually?
Yes. Picking from the case scenario you gave, it is an ideal case. So the questions that we have to ask ourselves is, if this community decides to settle this case, where do we leave the victim, the 14-year-old girl? She was the one who was violated, but she can't have a voice of her own. She can't speak for herself. And even if the mother refuses to report, where else will she go? Assuming she decided to disobey her mother and she goes to police and she reports and we investigate this case, do you see her going back to this home and being received by the family?
With open arms?
Or even that community accepting her? It is the reason we are having this conversation this day, that most of the perpetrators of these categories of offenses are people who are very well known to the victims. And research has it that 80% of the perpetrators are very close members of the community and the family of the victims. So when such a case comes, I would want to support that 14-year-old receive justice in her own capacity as a child, but also as a human being. So even without the support of the family and the community, the cases should be reported. So as the office of the DPP, I'll work with one IJM. We receive that child, we rescue the child from the family because they all look not to be supportive. So we rescue that child and keep them in a safe place. By our mandate, we direct police to conduct investigations. And I want to tell all our viewers here, just in case you ever go to a police station and you don't receive help from a police station, you can always come to the office of the DPP. In our communities where we come from and the districts, the office of DPP is referred to as the office of the state. So they will tell you, go to the state attorney's office. The Constitution gives the DPP mandate to receive those complaints and direct police to do investigations. So you can report directly to police, or you can report to the DPP's office. You can go to the LOC, who can give you a referral letter to report. Now, once that case is reported to police, we have been engaging quickly with police. We do what we call prosecutor-guided investigations. Once a report is received, we are engaged also as part of the team that guide the police to do investigations to ensure timely collection of evidence, and also to ensure that quality evidence is gathered. Because once time has gone and we want to use forensic evidence, sometimes we may not save on much. And the offenses, if we are to talk about sexual offenses, they don't happen in the open. So it is the victim and the perpetrator. So having forensic evidence is very helpful. So we will need that victim to get that piece of evidence extracted for the use in investigations. So we work with investigators to ensure that that evidence is collected on time. We also guide on what and how it should be preserved. We, as an office, when it comes to cases of sexual violence, we only have 2 days within which to process the file. So those files don't delay on our desk, and that is also done to ensure speedy and expeditious handling of cases, the fast tracking of their cases. So the SGBV desk will handle from police. When they come to DPP's office, we also have designated prosecutors and people in the field who have to sanction those files in a period of 2 days. And also we understand the unique nature of these categories of offenses, that we're also dealing with the most vulnerable people in our community. Incidentally, we have women, we are talking about women, we are talking about girls, but we also have men who are also suffering violence, and they are a vulnerable group that also needs support and also protection.
The most vulnerable, actually, because here on NTV we've done
that is how the office of DPP decided to have
on that note,
unique
do you have like a special attendant to the men's cases? Because those can't be handled by anybody.
We have
has to be a secret office somewhere.
We have trained all our prosecutors on special skills of handling different categories of witnesses: the elderly, the children, the boys, the girls, and the women. They have special skills on how to do that. And to understand the uniqueness of and the importance that the office puts on these categories of the offenses, we have a specialized unit. That is the Department of Gender. And that department gives special focus and support and technical support to all our field stations should this case come up and we are having challenges. And
we want people to know that when we say the word gender, it does not mean women.
No.
No.
It means men,
yes.
It means women, it means girls, it means boys, and also takes on the elderly, and also all persons with any form of disability. It's just a way of guiding us and supporting us on understanding the different groups, that we are different, and each category requires a special form of support.
Okay. Yes. Now, speaking of special form of support, there's also the element of stigma, there's the element of retaliation, and also the low trust in the justice system. We have seen it on the general paper right now is the political, environment that we're in, and the delayed justice. And so when people see that, they wonder if it's this delayed on, on such a big front, how much more delayed justice is there for the other elements, such as justice to women and children who have been violated, especially domestically. And so from your office, how are you actually addressing those barriers to ensure that they feel safe to come and really utilize the justice?
I want our viewers to know and understand that they have a very important and critical role when it comes to access to justice. So when we are talking about justice, it is not about the judge, the police officer, the prosecutor. We have the community. We have the victims and the survivors themselves. As a prosecutor, there is no way I will successfully prosecute this case in the absence of witnesses. So once a case has been reported, we would want the people who have reported to be interested in the process, to follow up and ensure that they receive the right information from the right people and that they are supported throughout the justice system. When the case is reported, and for example it is in court, I would want these people to come and report to the state attorney. Then the state attorney who is going to handle the case, you sit with them, conference with them, share your fears. When you share your fears with me as a prosecutor, when I go to court and this perpetrator is applying for bail, I am able to give those fears and share them with the court. That you see, the last time this person got bail, when they went back, they beat up my victim. From now assault, it is now grievous harm, and I'm not sure of what will happen next. So we support in terms of handling bail. If the accused has applied for bail, those are points that we would raise to give confidence. And also the Domestic Violence Act gives us also leverage to apply for extra orders. We have protection orders where the perpetrator is kept away from where the victim is. Where we feel, however, that the victim can't stay in that community for fear of retaliation, those are the few that we will have to get out of the community and put them in a safe place. Also, the Office of DPP, we have a witness protection department that works specifically for safety and protection of our witnesses. So we will assess the nature and the extent of the danger that particular witness is facing, and then we see how to support. We also have we have other mechanisms that we are using. In court, we encourage hearing of cases in camera. When I go to court, I will not make my victim face the perpetrator. We also, with technology as it is growing, we are also conducting hearings on Zoom. And the court is very gracious and is allowing us to do that. So I don't have to move the victim from far. I will keep them in a safe place, then they testify via Zoom. They can also testify on camera. In the office, as we conduct our interviews and as we prepare them for court, we have child-friendly spaces. And these spaces act as, they have been set up by a social therapist. For every item that is in those rooms is supposed to offer therapy and psychosocial support to the victim. So we will know how to deal with them. We know how to do with children. We understand that with children, their main language is play, not necessarily talking. So you'll find there are toys for children to play. Then for people who are young adults, sometimes they may not want to talk about it, but they want to write. So we have diaries in those rooms where somebody can narrate for you, and whatever they have narrated, that's what we use to present to court. If a child has drawn for you a picture of what happened between them and the perpetrator, I will present that picture to court to form part of evidence. We also make sure that our witnesses go through the justice system in a dignified manner. Priscilla, if I tell you, tell me what he did to you, and you will be shy to talk about.
I will even shed a tear.
Yeah,
I won't
you will
lie
even
to you.
shed a tear. But also when it comes to pointing to your body parts, you're more comfortable pointing to my body parts as compared to pointing to your own body parts. So we also have illustration tools that we use in court and in the course of prosecutions. We have anatomically detailed dolls, and our communities normally are shy to teach our children about private parts. So instead of a child coming to tell you where exactly it happened, they would call it susu, some call it flower, others call it wee-wee. Court has accepted those terms or as generally acceptable terms in referring to private parts, but therefore we will make it clear to court, because the burden that is on prosecution is to prove this case beyond reasonable doubt. So we have illustration tools which are in all our stations, dolls that we use, and the child is able to show where the susu is and where the other flower is, and then they are able to express themselves about what happened with dignity. We also have, incidentally, many of our cases, we have young teenagers nowadays, girls who are made pregnant, and then the men don't want to take responsibility, and you keep wondering, there are so many young women out there, why do you go for children?
Because responsibility has been translated as marry her off to the man who raped her, and then they start a family.
That's not
from
right.
The culture standards.
That's not right. Just about a week ago, we handled a case in one of our regions. This girl was doing P7. She was pregnant. Before the PLOE started, she gave birth. So after giving birth at home, they said, you're not coming back here with your child. Now, what were we supposed to do? We waited until she finished her PLOE exam at about 5. Then from there, we rushed with her to court to give evidence. After she has given evidence, the bigger question to me is now, what do I do for her? So we are having such a challenge, but when it comes to me keeping her and processing her and ensuring that she gives her evidence in a dignified manner, all our prosecutors are doing all of that.
Okay.
And
allow me to also inquire a little bit more on the perpetrator. We are in a society where these matters we're talking about here are majorly encouraged to be handled on the community level.
Yes.
Let's not bring police in to sort of chimarira wano.
Yes.
And so it reminds me of a case that went viral last year of a Hajati who had the daughters, and she insinuated that Haji had, defiled one of the girls. And the community was saying, no, release Haji, let's talk to him, and then she shouldn't put her husband in the limelight and things like that. What stringent measures or mechanisms do you have for this perpetrator? You have said, you talked about the bail issue. In this country of ours, Miss Samari, if I have kintu kidogo and I can afford a heavy brown envelope, I can get out of the jail. And I'm still in society.
Well, I don't think that will live out of the reality of corruption. It's there. But I can assure you that there are very many judicial officers who do work without corruption. And there are also so many prosecutors who do their work without corruption. And you'll also find very many police officers who are doing their work well. I want us to look beyond certain limitations and explore the opportunities.
See, these
that
are the
we
limitations
have. Yeah.
that are
and then
realities.
we explore the opportunities that we have, because once bail has been granted, it is not an end to that case. Certainly not. It is just an opportunity for a perpetrator to go out and report back to court. Their day of court will come. Certainly, one way or another. But when it comes to communities handling and settling cases, it is always one of the most selfish things that we'd look at, because in the entire spectrum of settling cases, who is the beneficiary? If cows are paid, who is the beneficiary? You'll find that it is the clan leaders, it will be the parents, and none of these are the actual victims of the crime. So you will end up having a bitter person growing up in this child because they have not received justice for what happened to them. And I believe that because they have not received what they call justice, they will grow bitter, and probably that's why sometimes we have a disoriented community in future.
Briefly, let me have Mr. Mwanje. What are some of those mechanisms or strategies you believe can be known to the community so that they can pick up trust in the justice system, so that they can report more cases of violence against women and children?
Thank you very much, Priscilla. And Samuel has mentioned, has emphasized the role of the victims to engage with the system. But one thing we acknowledge is that if they're not aware about the mechanisms available, they will not know where to report. From the findings of that, we saw that about 56%, only 56 knew where to find help. So you have a good number of people who don't know, where do I start?
They actually believe their help stops at police.
Exactly.
Police does not take it in, that's
the community.
And yet there is a whole scope of the GBV referral pathway, we have these materials made by the Ministry of Gender, and most times it is in the offices and some of these public places. We need to have all this information down to the local level to know that there is a CSO, there is a CBO, there is a CDO next to me, there's a probation officer. All these actors can lead me to get the justice I need. So we need to make sensitization about what are the referral pathways, where can I start. Court might be 10 kilometers away, but there is close help from me from where I start. I can call 116. It is Sauti 116. It is toll free. Whether I'm a woman who has been abused or a child who has been abused, I can get the help. So the referral pathway needs to be known. The other thing also we need to work on is to ensure that we create an environment that empowers the survivors to speak. Now for children, you would say someone may speak for them. Their mother might report to police, or a neighbor might know about the abuse and report. But for the woman who has faced domestic violence, it takes a lot of courage to report their spouse. And even upon reporting, to be able to endure the process. Because even at the first point where they report, they might be told, what did you do? Or what did you do this time?
Yeah.
How could he have injured you this much? Could you have been the cause of the problem? So the victim now becomes the one who is blamed. So it takes a lot of courage for someone to stand up and stand for their rights.
That's true, because we had a case in our community. The young lady reported her husband beat her and her teeth got out.
Yes.
When they went to police, interestingly enough, it was the female officer that received the case. And she said, what did you do to provoke your man? Imagine. And so they were discouraged. And then, of course, the family of the young man was of status in community.
I would not go
and that's
back.
how the case died.
Yes.
They tried, but all the different layers had.
And I can also tell you that we had a colleague who was working with us, and we never knew she was undergoing domestic violence.
Wow.
Until one day when she did not come to work and we found she had been killed by her partner.
So how do we encourage coordination between police, prosecution, courts, probation officers, local leaders, and the community by and large to ensure that justice is served to these victims?
Yes, coordination is very key, because one thing is that this kind of abuse cannot be handled by one sector. And one of the challenges we face is that we have this silo approach. Someone goes to police and waits for police to work alone, then maybe a probation officer to work alone. It is the DP that is supposed to guide the police to investigate. How about making use of structures where all these people can be brought together? So we have some of these mechanisms that as IGEM we are trying to encourage to work together in what we are calling the CCRM, Coordinated Community Response Mechanisms. Mechanisms like the DAC, District Action Center, an initiative of the Ministry of Justice or Ministry of Gender, where the probation officer will convene a meeting of CSOs in the district, a prosecutor, a police officer, social health workers, to discuss the cases within the community. They will conference about them, and then they find quick solutions as opposed to the silo approach. Even forums like the DCC and RCC are important. They may not discuss specific cases. These are structures that are called by the judiciary, either the judge who heads the circuit or the chief magistrate. But you will find in there people from prisons, the DPP, police, CSOs, everyone involved in the administration of justice. They will talk about what are the serious issues in our area. What is the response? Where is the gap? Is it the medical officers who do not come to testify? Is it the delay in sanctioning of files by DPP? These are strong institutions and structures whereby decisions can be made to identify where are the gaps, and the more coordinated, the more working together, we will have a holistic response and more timely than the silo approach. So we need to sensitize the masses about these structures where they can go to, and you kind of have a kind of one-stop center.
So on that sensitization of structures, that's why we're here, Ms. Samali. Sensitize us about the actual structures existing to deliver justice to the victims of violence, especially against women and children.
All right. Once a case has happened in the community, most times they will run to their local leaders. More often than not, the understanding is that the local leaders know them, so they can give you a referral to the police station. However, we have noticed that sometimes you'll find the LC who is a very close friend to the perpetrator. So sometimes they may not be supportive. So if you can't report to the LC, go straight to the police station, the nearest police station, and make your report. Once the report has been entered, the police know what to do. If you, however, find that the police station is far, we have medical facilities. Most people will run actually to the next health facility, a drug shop or a clinic nearby. Kebero mwana wange, bangambye bamukute. And that nurse will be the first point of reference. Then from there we go to police. That is where we begin collecting evidence. And unlike other crimes like murder, for cases of sexual violence, the victim, as you see them, is an entire scene of crime. So how well we manage it will determine the quality of the evidence. So from police, those cases are processed and brought to the DPP's office. Incidentally, many people know the police, they know the courts, and they don't know the office of the DPP. But all cases from police will come to the DPP's office. So in the DPP's office, we read those files and we sanction them for court. After sanctioning and registering them in court, we go ahead and prosecute them in court. We present the evidence to court. So when we present that evidence to court, then court will make a decision on whether this person is guilty and or is not guilty. Along that process, there are a number of things that come up. Safety of the victim, transportation, where they will be, how they will come, case preparation, a number of things, but largely that is how the system operates. So from police, you come to the DPP's office. From the DPP's office to court. So meaning that a case cannot go to court without a prosecutor. And a case cannot be processed in court without a prosecutor. So we want to use today's forum to emphasize the role and the importance of a prosecutor if we are to do justice for the victims, and to encourage our listeners that when this case comes up, the prosecutor is your lawyer. Run to them. They will be able to support you and they will be able to help you.
The prosecutor is your lawyer. Please run to them. But also, we need to be privy of the fact that the justice system, at least as far as gender-based violence cases are concerned, is working. Ms. Samali, talk to us about the statistics when it comes to dealing with cases of defilement, rape as violation cases. Yeah,
we are, by the way, working very well at that. Right now, judiciary has been doing a project for a period of now 2 years, daily hearings. And among the cases we have been fast tracking to ensure that they are heard very fast are cases of gender-based violence, sexual assault and related cases. So we are conducting daily hearings. Then we also have plea bargains, where the perpetrator who believes that they committed this offense and they are remorseful in their heart, they will say, I am accepting the offense. For such, we don't keep them long on remand if the person is accepting. So in plea bargain cases, we are guaranteed a 100% convictions rate. But now the ones we have been handling in sessions every single day, we are talking about 80% convictions rate. Now, in our language of conviction, it means people held responsible and found guilty for the crimes they are doing. And in our view, I think it is a good performance.
And punished for the crimes.
And punished for the crimes. So if somebody has been held responsible and they are serving a punishment for their crime, then it shows that we are doing great work. And I think even in prisons, the most feared offense should be defilement and rape.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. What other successes have you been able to actually register?
Among the other things, of course, now we are working with, we have come to a realization that when you're working at cases of gender-based violence, it's not a one-man show. In fact, once you take it alone, you will fail. So we need the media. We need the media to help us sensitize the public. We also need organizations like IJM and other organizations that we work with to support us in safety, rescue, and the welfare of the witnesses, even as they come to court. In fact, when we finished the case that I was telling you of, that little girl who finished There's an organization that has picked her up. They are going to take care of her, and then they are going to take care with her baby, and she will go back to school should the results of PLOE come out.
That's very encouraging.
Yeah.
Bisamali, something else comes to my mind. There's the primary victim, there's the secondary victim.
Yes.
What is the management mechanism or strategy for the secondary victim?
I am glad you have asked, because now many people, most times, even when these settlements are being done in the communities, they will only look at the primary victim. They will not look at the larger community. If violence has happened in the home between husband and wife, more often they will say, mama, but the children are affected psychologically. The immediate family are affected by this. So we want to look beyond and then look at the other. So if I don't do something about this to stop this cycle of violence, how am I ensuring that the children who are living in such a violent home are growing up in a wholesome manner? So it's important. Now in court, if I have a victim who has a child, I'll make separate prayers. I'll make prayers for the victim, and then I'll also make prayers for the baby. Yeah. Sometimes they have given birth, sometimes they have not given birth. So court always has leverage and the discretion to give orders for such. It, however, becomes a little bit difficult because as a justice system, we don't have aftercare services, and we don't have any budget for aftercare services. And because we don't have that, it is why most times we have to work with organizations that will have to support. But also we are aware that there are government programs like PDM, Youth Livelihood, so we work with the Ministry of Gender, do a few connections here and there. And interestingly, once a woman has been empowered economically, life goes on.
All right. Mr. Mwanje, I'd like you to have a response to what, or an addition to what Ms. Samali has added, but also in regards to the justice system, as she has rightly put it. This is a justice system that creates a harnessing environment to ensure that facilitation of justice is made smoothly in consideration of the cases, but there's also intimidation of survivors thereafter. And so we want to hear from you in your experience, what needs to be done to improve a survivor's experience as they are pursuing justice.
Yes, thank you. And that's why we have said that we need to have collaboration among the justice actors, but also other service providers. And she has mentioned the role of CSOs. Because as you see, when police, for example, is investigating, they may have challenges with the transport, they may have challenges with medical support beyond the examination because someone could have been badly injured. So that is where now CSOs come in. You've talked about primary and secondary victims. There is one child who has been sexually abused. The father is going to be held accountable. What happens to the other children? In the home. And therefore you work with a number of partners, those who provide livelihood, those who provide scholarship for education, to ensure that your intervention to this victim does not forget the entire family structure. Witness protection is still a gap because we don't have a law, but we want to appreciate the Office of the ODPP because they have a unit which has made advances to ensure that when we have survivors who are intimidated, they can be protected. And we have actually a live case whereby in some part of this country we had a family that we supported because the abuser was a grandfather and the complainant was the father of the girl. And the grandfather wanted this family out of jurisdiction. And so we had to work with also the DPP, we had to work with police to ensure that the perpetrator is brought to court, but also the family is evacuated. And we work with the ODP to ensure that that family is safe even before the court processes continue. So the perpetrator was held accountable and the court process continued, but the family was also secured, children continued with school, and they were safe from the abuser. So you need a multi-sectoral approach of actors to come in to ensure that children and women are protected. For children, we have a few safe places. There are a good number of shelters which are available. For women, it is quite a challenge because there are not many challenges for women and men, as she has said. So that's why we encourage, beyond CSOs, other structures like the church. Churches could provide foster families. Mothers Union could provide safety for women who have been abused. For that time when they are undergoing counseling, recovering from the trauma, to have a home where they can stay. Because if you come and report your spouse who has abused you, and you make your statements and you go back together with the abusive spouse, there's no guarantee you will come back. The next time you might lose your life. And therefore we need all actors to ensure that they provide safety in addition to what's provided by government actors.
Okay. To both of you, how do we handle the situation that currently exists in most especially rural communities, where the community leaders will end this conversation with whatever decision they would have made for the victim and the perpetrator? What are the risks of staying silent in such a case scenario? And I'm asking this because usually this community leader is settling this matter with the mindset of family, not primarily the victim.
Yes. In responding to you, I'll give you a typical case that we handled. There was violence between husband and wife. The first time he beat her, she went and reported, said it was just a slap. Go back and cook. She went back. The next time, the injuries were more serious, grievous harm, and nothing was done about that case. Then, before we knew it, on the third instance, it was a case of murder. So it is then that everybody now woke up, and you'd hear evidently from the community, abadamu kuba buli lunako mchala nga akaba na yete wali amuyambye. But now the question is, when you come up to speak at that time, when it is already late, had you taken action from the very start?
And the speaker's voiceless.
Had you taken action then, we wouldn't have lost a person. This person was a mother, this person was a community leader, this person was useful to the
They
community.
were just a human being. Let's not even attach things to them, mother, daughter, what. They were a human being.
And they have a right to life. You see, life is graciously given to all of us by God, and nobody has a right to take it away. So, in such scenarios, we want to encourage people to report, speak up. And it is even interesting for cases of children. It is if you don't report, and we know that you learned about it and you did not report, there are sanctions for it.
Mr. Mwanje, in some of the elements that you mentioned, you did have a call to church. So by and large, religion or religious leaders. Religious leaders, honestly, have also influenced matters otherwise, in the pretext of we must keep the family together. We can't allow separation, things like that. What's your message to these community leaders religiously?
Thank you. So we have a church partnership department in IJM. We have a community engagement, and under it is a church partnership, where we engage with all religious institutions, empowering them to know what's the difference between forgiveness and accountability.
Yes.
When a reverend receives a complaint from a woman whose marriage he superintended, and she comes and talks about the abuse, and he says, remember you swore for better, for worse. You have a marriage certificate. We are saying that is not helpful because you may not have that congregant tomorrow. So you should be able to listen through the situation and determine which one is a simple case of counseling, which one is a severe case that needs to be taken to the justice system. So we have engagements, awareness raising with religious leaders of all kinds of religions to empower them on what justice means, the impact of abuse on the survivors, and how as a church or as any religion they need to stand up and channel these people to the justice system. I also wanted to say something about being silent and its effect. Staying silent, of course, is dangerous. We lost a sports personality, Rebecca Cheptegei, to that. We've lost many people because of being silent. And she mentioned Speak. There is a movement that we work with called the Uganda Survivor Network, a movement of women who have suffered domestic violence, and they are now using a campaign called Speak, End Violence Against Women and Children. So what they are doing is they are having conversations among themselves. They are engaging local leaders, they are engaging government leaders, they will do skits, they will have speeches at national events or at local events to talk about what this violence means, what they felt when they had been abused and how the justice system responded and how they can do better. We believe that that survivor voice is one of those that we can use to encourage reporting from the community level. But there are also other mechanisms like community barazas, where you have actors like the DPP, police coming to the community, talking about their mandate, talking about what they are supposed to do, and allowing the community to say, where have you not received our services? That kind of accountability also will strengthen the public's confidence in the justice system and will encourage people to report cases.
All right, our time is first spent, but I hope one day we get to talk to those women so that they can tell their story, which encourages other people to come out and really utilize the justice resources that are available. In conclusion, Ms. Samali, what is the call to action from the DPP's office?
From our DPP's office, we want to encourage people to report. One, report. Then work with us. Please don't leave us alone. Work with us, come to court and testify, because we need you to testify. Number 3, we are here to serve the public. So the lawyer you can leverage on and is us. So please come to us and learn more about what we do and get to understand how important our office is and know that we are here to help you. Lastly, don't settle cases, because it doesn't benefit the actual victim of crime. The
legal assistance that is gotten through the DPP's office is free of charge?
Kabisa.
Okay. Just to clarify on that. Mr. Mwanje, IJM, what's the call to action to the different stakeholders?
So the first thing is, for the victims, speak up. Don't be silent, there is help. If you have a challenge with going to the police and wherever, you can first start with calling that number, Sauti 116. Community leaders, let us support survivors when they report abuse. Let us not stand on the side of the perpetrators, let us empower the survivors to report. Community leaders, please channel the survivors' complaints to the justice system. Don't settle them. Justice actors, let us work in collaboration, not in silos. I want to remind us that we are having an awareness campaign on the role of the office of the ODPP, because it is central as a gate in managing criminal investigations and prosecution. So tomorrow, for those who are around Kampala, there is an awareness campaign happening at City Square at 9 a.m. Please come and listen to what the DPP's office is about. Come and ask your questions, come and express your frustrations. But wherever we are, let us ensure that women and children are safe. We have P7 vacists back. We have senior 4. And as they come, really, there's a lot of worry about how safe we will be. All of us have a role to ensure that these people are safe.
Mr. Mwanje, thank you so much for the work that you're doing through the International Justice Mission Uganda. Ms. Wakoli, DPP's office, thank you so much for making sure that you are a front runner of justice being served, of violence against women and children and men. One message is clear out of today: speak up against the violence. You may be the victim, speak up. You may be the one seeing the victim, you also have a responsibility to speak up. So let all stakeholders, from police to the DPP, IGM, community leaders, religious leaders, protect our children so that we can have a better future. That brings us to the end of this conversation. I am Priscilla Regina Nelwoga. Good day.